In Katerina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. So our long, in scare quotes, 40-day national nightmare is over, or is on the precipice of being over, after a deal on the furlough of non-essential federal workers was reached last night in the Senate, with 5 Dems joining Fetterman, King, and Masto from Nevada as the 3 that were already on board for the quote-unquote reopening. So now we're back to our sort of regularly scheduled profligacy and mismanagement of the federal government. Pressure was coming from both sides, of course, particularly with reductions in air travel, with more pending and presaged by Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy. Did have some moments over the weekend that were both fun, all things considered, and telling. Scott Bessent going back and forth with Clinton Foundation donor Zero, George Stephanopoulos, on this week was somewhat entertaining, particularly when Bessent brought the receipts in terms of how the left-wing political flack that is George Stephanopoulos previously characterized these furloughs of non-essential workers back when he was formerly a Clintonista operative.
George, the best way to do it, and look, you were involved in a lot of these in the 90s, and you basically called the Republicans terrorists, and you said that it is not the responsible party that keeps the government closed. And so what we need is 5 brave, moderate Democratic senators to cross the aisle, because right now it is 52 to 3. 5 Democrats can cross the aisle and reopen the government. That's the best way to do it, George.
I can disagree with you about the history there, but we don't need a history lesson right now.
George, let's talk about
what's happening right now.
If you want, I've got all your quotes here. George.
I'm sure you do. But let's talk about the situation right now.
Read your book, so you got one purchase on Amazon this week, and that's very much what you said.
I'm glad that Bessent didn't let Stephanopoulos talk over him and got that shot in. It's appropriate. I mean, of course, there's no moral high ground that intellectual pipsqueak Stephanopoulos holds, or any of the other Sunday talkies, the hosts of the Sunday talkies. But something else that Bessent said and Kevin Hassett said and others, I mean, it's a little bit concerning, but not in the way that they intended it. And I wish there would be a little bit more consideration from the party and the president on this.
Just heard about all these impacts from the government shutdown right now. Are we starting to see a permanent impact on the economy?
Sure, George, and good to be with you. And we've seen an impact on the economy from day one, but it's getting worse and worse. We had a fantastic economy under President Trump the past 2 quarters, and now there are estimates that the economic growth for this quarter could be cut in by as much as half if the shutdown continues. And what your correspondent didn't talk about there, George, was there's, of course, the human cost, and we're going to have the busiest travel day of the year, the day after Thanksgiving. And Americans should look to 5 Democratic senators to come across the aisle to open that. But on the other side, there's also cargo is being slowed down. So, we could end up with shortages, whether it's in our supply chains, whether it's for the holiday.
So, of course, those 5 senators came across, and we've got a deal. For more on this, pleased to be joined by Republican Senator from Wisconsin, Ron Johnson. Senator Johnson, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Morning, Dan. Hope you're doing well.
You too. So, I mean, here's the rub I have with what Bessent and Hassett and others are saying is sort of this, if we don't get the government reopened, we could have a negative quarter of GDP growth. Well, doesn't that say, like, our government is too big, it is involved in too much, and this is an opportunity. Yeah, we need to get past this impasse in the short term, but hopefully after we get past this, we can talk a little bit more about why the American economy is so allegedly dependent on the federal government's interventions?
You're exactly right. The first thing we ought to do is privatize air traffic control. We have an incredibly antiquated system. Other countries that don't are far more modernized. We're limping along here. And obviously that was the real pinch point. I think that's, in the end, what caused the five Democrats, and I appreciate the fact they did it, to cross over and begin the process of reopening the government. We're not there yet. Hopefully, the entire Democrat caucus will let us do this quickly. Get it done today so the House can come back in here and we can get things back up and operating. It'll probably take a while to get the airports straightened out. These things do have very negative economic consequences, which is why I proposed the real solution, which is the Eliminate Shutdowns Act. This never has happened again. This is just so unbelievably simple. But the problem we have right now as Democrats do not want the economy to do well under Trump and Republicans. That's how cynical this is. They want to see the economy tank so they can win the midterms. And they're also doing everything they can to paper over, hide the miserable failure that Obamacare is. Gross premiums are going up about 26%. The reason they're screaming about premiums doubling and tripling, that would be for probably less than 2 million Americans who are above 400% of the poverty line that did get the enhanced subsidies, and those subsidies go away. So they're scaring the American public to think that everybody's premium is going to double and triple. That's not true. We've got maybe not even 2 million people that may be true for, but they primarily are screaming about these enhanced subsidies just to completely hide the dramatic increase. Premiums should not be going up 26%. Premiums should not have gone up close to 200% nationwide since Obamacare took effect, when inflation's up 39%. It's more than a fourfold increase over what inflation is because of Obamacare. This is all being caused because of the faulty design of Obamacare, so they're trying to cover it up. So they dug their heels in, they fought on Obamacare to cover that up, but they primarily dug their heels in because they want to tank the economy so that President Trump can claim no success so they win the midterms. That's how grossly cynical this entire shutdown's been. And they don't care. They don't care who gets damaged. I mean, they are the party of big government. They in effect took their own family member hostage.
Yeah, I mean, the Obamacare thing, eliminate competition and prices go up. What a surprise. The deal, though, as I read, the deal only goes through Jan 30. So are we going to be back here at the beginning of February? That's
why I've called on our leadership, and hopefully the president will get on board to really start pushing the Eliminate Shutdown Act. Yeah, we're going to be right back here. Do you think Democrats are going to fund the Department of Homeland Security? Do you think they're going to fund defense to the extent it really should be funded, unless there's an offset there and throw more money at their failed programs? I mean, did you realize that the SNAP program, food stamps, prior to Obama, the range was somewhere between 6 and 10%, probably about 7% of the American population were taking advantage of that program. Obama came in, dramatically increased eligibility. So now the range has been somewhere about 11 to 15%, average 12 to 13%. I mean, that's a 4 to 5% of the American population increase in food assistance since Obama. 42 million people on food stamps is not a metric of success. It's a metric of failure. So we pay people not to work. That's the whole thing about Medicaid expansion, single, able-bodied, working-age childless adults, give them free health care, they can sit in their dust and not work. I mean, it's really sick what Democrats are doing in this country with their massive welfare program that's mortgaging our kids' future. The
just in terms of the terms of this deal, So the promise is Senate Majority Leader Thune promised to give to hold a vote on the enhanced subsidies and whether or not to extend them before the year's out, and also the promise was made to return to their jobs anybody who was riffed by Russ Vought over the last 40 days, in addition to back pay. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's what the administration conceded. I think there are just a few thousand anyway. Somebody in our caucus, I haven't verified this, said that Bill Clinton reduced the workforce by about 400,000 people during his administration. 400,000. So Trump, I heard the numbers about 4,000. Again, I don't know the exact numbers, but it's minuscule. Okay? You know how many Americans lose their job every month, every year? You know, there's a great deal of churn in our economy. So again, this gets blown way out of proportion. So I think there's a mighty concession on the part of the administration. Get government back up and running, but it doesn't affect his authority once this continuing resolution runs out. But again, that's the whole point. What do we do on February 1st?
Right, but I mean, this is a kick the can down the road, no doubt about it. Okay, I mean, I get that, so I mean, this can be revisited because, I mean, to your point, there's a lot of culling of the federal of federal headcount. I don't mean to be cavalier about it, but it's just too big, too many people working for it. That needs to be done, and that should be done, and what you're saying can still be done.
I think it's time to reintroduce reduce the federal workforce through Attrition Act. You don't have to fire anybody; just don't hire people. You know, reallocate them to where you need them. You literally reduce the workforce very quickly, particularly nowadays with a bunch of baby boomers in federal government as well. So just don't hire more people. Start reducing the federal workforce from that standpoint. But I've got a comment on this Obamacare enhanced subsidies, the extension of them.
Yeah.
Again, these were temporary. Democrats caused them to expire. But I think they've made a big mistake because this has allowed us to point out how destructive and what a miserably failed experiment Obamacare was. I held a hearing this week assessing the damage done by Obamacare. And, you know, we had great witnesses. They talked about the consolidation of the industry. We've got a chart up there now. United Healthcare, their stock price is up 1,177% since Obamacare. We're just pouring billions of dollars into the insurance companies. They're making money hand over fist as their premiums are increasing. Medicaid expansion, that's crowding out disabled children out of services because providers get paid more for those single adults. And the Democrats' own witness, a mom from Madison, was a victim of Obamacare. She lost her employer-sponsored care because of Obamacare, had to sign up for her silver plan, $1,000 a month. Couldn't afford it, switched to a bronze plan with a $14,000 deductible. Her and her husband had to take on the $18,000 home equity line of credit to pay for medical bills. That was the Democrat witness. She was a victim of Obamacare. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So I think they've stepped in this. We're going to have the entire month to point out how destructive and what a miserably failed program Obamacare really is. I think they will live to regret making this a big issue.
What is your position on extending those subsidies that were intentionally sunset after 2 years, so that the Dems could have this very fight? But I mean, but they were sold as being temporary because of exigent circumstances. Those circumstances no longer exist, so why should they be extended?
Yeah, absolutely not. Okay, what we need to do is work to repair the damage done by Obamacare and transition to a system that works. Now, President Trump has exactly right. What you do is the billions you spend, give that to the American public to buy the health care plans they want. But we've got to give them the freedom to buy different kind of plans as opposed to the very prescriptive Obamacare policies, which have driven up the cost of health care. People don't realize we all want to cover people with pre-existing conditions. We should have used the existing high-risk pools, tweaked them, modify them. It would have cost minimal to do it. Instead, they outlawed those, they got rid of them, and then they forced the people on the individual exchanges, the 20-odd million people on there, to bear the full cost of covering people with pre-existing conditions. It was obviously going to fail. It did fail, but that wasn't the point of Obamacare for Democrats was to transition to a single-payer system. That's always been their game plan. They knew it wouldn't reduce premium costs. They knew it would skyrocket, but they figured that would create pressure for a single-payer system. we've got to frustrate those plans because a single-payer system would be a disaster for this country.
But before we let you go, you referenced it, but I wanted you to define it too, so people know and can contact their legislators to promote it too. But your elimination of shutdowns act, how would that work?
It's just simple. All it does is for any department that hasn't gotten appropriation before the end of the fiscal year, you just set up rolling 2-week continuing appropriations. No strings attached. You just do that. That'll give the appropriators time to find areas of agreement. For example, we already passed out of the Senate the military construction VA bill together with agriculture, I think the legislative branch. So those 3 appropriation bills we already passed. That's part of this part of this deal. I mean, that should be funded. Then you move on to the next appropriation bill. But again, there's all kinds of appropriation reform we should do. For example, 2-year appropriation bills would give us time to actually do this. Obviously, 12 appropriation bills aren't working. I've been here 15 years. 180 bills should have passed prior to the fiscal year. 6 have. It's a 96.7% failure rate. And that's why the appropriators are against my Eliminate Shutdown Act because it takes away their power. They won't have these shutdowns to utilize to spend more money we don't have. So, again, we need the Eliminate Shutdowns Act. That is the solution. Incredibly simple bill. It's a couple pages.
Right, and when you do it on an annualized basis too, then you get to horse trade and you get to raise money off of what you're going to do or not do on annualized appropriations. So, of course, it's in the interest of the politicians and their reelections.
Absolutely, it's a corrupt process. We have got to end that corrupt process. And by the way, if you put this Eliminate Shutdown Act as a referendum in the American public, it would probably pass 90% plus. The American people don't want to see this anymore. So start calling up the legislators, get behind Eliminate Shutdowns Act.
He is Republican Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin. Of course, Senator Johnson, thank you as always. Appreciate it.
Have a great day.
You too. And Senator Johnson joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
This is the morning show more Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no